Today we're going to be discussing some of the concepts and my impressions after visiting the Museum of Confluences by Coop Himmelblau located in Lyon. Welcome back to the channel. In my last video we covered in depth the whole redevelopment of the Confluence area and the master plans, so I won't go into much detail there. You could check that video later if you wish to know more. I will mention though that the Confluence area is located in the south of Lyon's peninsula between the rivers Saône and Rhône, and it was quite isolated from the city, although it has been redeveloped to regain all that space for the city center, with a very interesting end result in my opinion. The building sits right on the tip of the peninsula where the rivers come together next to the A7 road. Now, Lyon is probably my favorite city in France. I think it has all besides the sea, but it is big enough to offer everything and not that big to be overwhelming at the same time. The area around the rivers is fantastic. It has a good architecture, it's very lively, the people are incredibly nice, and of course, the food. Also, the weather is not Mediterranean, but the climate is already very good with mild winters. It is quite an underrated city, especially outside France, but I think that perception might slowly change due to all the new developments in the city. Probably the most influential building in the last 30 years, Bilbao's Guggenheim was almost an instant success after its inauguration in October of 1997. It transcended its status as a building in the city to become an icon, the image and economic engine of Bilbao transforming it. This building and the impact that it had made other cities follow the same formula of star architectures with the hope of achieving the same result and impact the Guggenheim had. Even at some point, the chairman of the city council of Łódź in Poland asked Frank Gehry to do the Guggenheim for them. A new museum? No, the same. The exact same? Yes, but ours will be a concert hall. I think this building is a bit the victim of that effect. And don't get me wrong, I'm not even bashing Bilbao's Guggenheim. It has done wonders for the city and the area, but the danger of focusing on the iconography is there. Because in that magic formula, the building is just one of the numbers to open the lock and not the full combination. Of course, the buildings have many lives and you don't know what the building will mean until it starts its new life being used by the people. It might become something new and reach the level. But the initial approach of building an icon intentionally, I think it can be argued it's not doing the building a favor. And this creates buildings that go away from their meaning and focus on the translation or the visual impact. The more impactful, the better. Is it fair to classify it as deconstructivist, or is it just a stylistic exercise? Is it a bit like that band or that singer that you loved that came out with an amazing new sound in their first records? Suddenly they're famous and they find the magic formula and then that's all they do over and over again? You know that band? For me, super architectures are a bit like that. Let me know what you think of these super architectures. I would love to know your opinion. Anyway, let's go on with some quick facts about the building. The building's height is 41 meters, length 190 meters, and the width is 90 meters. The initial budget was 61 million euros, and the final cost went up to 300 million euros. Part of this cost impact was due to its location. The team experienced issues with the foundations due to poor soil consistency, and that process required lots of extra work and support. The inauguration took place in December of 2014. It has currently around 700,000 visitors per year, and the project surface is 22,000 square meters and the exhibition surface 6,500 square meters. The building is composed of two very distinct shapes, those being, as referred by the architect, the cloud, the main upper volume of the building containing all the spaces of the museums, and the crystal area with lobby, hall, and the main vertical communication, so the ramps and the stairs. All of it on top of a concrete plinth. Going through the program distribution, the plinth volume contains the two auditorium spaces with capacity for 327 and 122 persons and the workspaces. On the ground level, the ticket stand and the shop in the front part of the crystal hall, the restaurant in the back, and the pond that splits the space in two and benefits from that shadow area To access these spaces, you would need to go upstairs from the street level, and there are three possible options. The main front stair is located almost on the cross between the A7 and the Raimond-Barré bridge, but there are two more stairs, one on the side of the main volume of the building. This will get you directly to that shadowed area where the restaurant and the pond are, and the third stair is on the back side facing the confluence. Now, the first level of the building hosts the temporary exhibitions. On the second level are the permanent exhibitions, museum administration on the third floor, and the cafeteria and lookout points on the fourth floor. As a side note, just mention that if your intention is visiting the building, you don't need to buy a ticket necessarily. A lot of spaces in the building can be seen without paying a ticket. You'll miss all the exhibition rooms though, and I must say I found the museum that features art, science, natural history, and technology exhibitions to be very extensive and interesting. There are several ramps and stairs running through the building that communicates different levels and spaces in some sort of promenade architectural. Now, if we take the concept of a promenade architectural as a sequential path to discover the building, I would say that the sequence present in the building is a bit shallow. The volume and the space is obvious from the bottom, and walking through the ramps doesn't allow you to discover new spaces really. You've seen the space entering the hall, basically. Something worth noting additionally is that the whole space is around 30 meters tall and the space is built with glass. The upper you go, the hotter it gets, and it gets hot. This was intentionally designed this way, so no forced air was needed in the space. There are ventilation flaps inside the east facade and the exhaust air exits via the roof area. But when I visited the building, the outside temperature was around 20 degrees. It was sunny, and right on the top of that space it was hot. Now, hot. Also, in the first proposals, especially if we take a look at these models, the two spaces, the cloud and the crystal, are very different visually, and that crystal space is very airy and light. Now, the metal profiles are much more present, which translated in a heavier feeling from the distance, and those two spaces are almost one, or they almost look like one. We all know that paper will take whatever you draw on it, but gravity is not so kind. In all seriousness, I read they did lots of calculations to reduce the weight of that metal structure though. Now, the structure of the cloud is a steel construction resting on 12 concrete columns and 3 concrete towers that contain the emergency stairs and the shafts. Also, the steel construction allows not to have columns in the museum rooms. The museum rooms in levels 1 and 2 are quite classical, having very dimmed and almost dark spaces with no natural light access. The different exhibitions in the same level are connected through central corridors, and there is a skylight to bring natural light from the top on the second level, as well as openings on the floors to allow light to access the first floor. Considering the location and name of the building, I find interesting that the only point from where you can see the confluence is the back staircase actually. For when you reach the fourth floor, 2 lookout points can be found. The first one overlooks the Rhône River and the second one faces the highway side. Something I didn't love, but this was more on a personal note, is that this second lookout point has a metal grid on the floor, and looking down it's completely open. And I'm not the biggest fan of heights, so to say, so I found this quite interesting considering this is 30 meters above ground approximately. The area where the building sits is quite interesting. Although the building is located a bit away from the city center already, the beautiful scenery and the fact they improved and built the surrounding area makes it much more appealing for people to go there and spend some time doing a picnic or taking a nap, which I think it's a great added value. When I visited the building and the area, the movement of people was constant, and you could see people enjoying the location either for the views or because it's a more quiet place. The area is quite well connected from the Guerlain side by foot, bike or tram through the bridge, or from the upper part of the peninsula by car crossing the A6 and A7, so it's easier now to get to this area. What are my final thoughts? I have my reservations regarding the concept of the building. I think it seemed a bit arbitrary. Also, regarding the scale of the building with the river and its surroundings, I find it to be quite massive visually as well. I liked the spaces the body of the building creates under it, and the fact that the building expands the south side of the peninsula to the limit. The monetary translation of that, not so much. Worth mentioning is the technical complexity of the building, because this is quite a difficult location next to the river and very interesting to solve technically. But does the technical achievement justify the design choice and implications? You tell me your opinion. I would love to know what you think. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe if you like the content. I would appreciate it, and I hope to see you all in the next one.